Hey everyone, and welcome to the second official episode of Vampires, Werewolves, and Hunters Oh My. It's been a while since I've actually produced a vlog for this segment. Life has been a little crazy, but I'm excited to get back on track today. And I'm going to be doing something a little different today. Since I'm a little behind, I have a lot I have to catch up on for you, my viewers. So today we're going to do 8 episodes. Yes, you heard that right, 8. We're going to have 3 episodes of Being Human, 3 episodes of the originals, as well as 2 episodes of the Vampire Diaries, including the 100th episode, which I'm very excited to vlog about for you guys. The first episode of Being Human for 2014 was entitled Old Dog, New Tricks. Primarily the story is going to revolve around Josh and Nora, and what's been happening since the end of Season 3. So Josh is still trapped, turning as a wolf. Nora's still turning as a wolf, but now it's a lot more difficult for them to have a relationship. Basically, every month, they're only both human for 30 minutes. Josh is a werewolf, he transforms back to human, and only has 30 minutes to be with his wife before Nora transforms into a wolf herself. I can't even begin to imagine how difficult this must be for the couple. You know, they're newlyweds. They're werewolf newlyweds, and now they only get 30 minutes a month to spend together. Granted, they don't waste any time, as we see from the, very steamy lovemaking scene, in which Nora doesn't even stop to take her boots off. So, kudos to Nora on remaining fashionable. Then we have Sally, who we see her, she's kind of in this spa, she's relaxing with Donna, only come to find out that she's actually trapped in a holding cell thanks to Donna. Donna's trying to convince Sally that all of her hole popping is really dangerous and she needs to stop. Sally is very suspicious of Donna. She doesn't believe that Donna's telling the truth and she believes there's something else going on with her. So the first chance Sally gets, she escapes from the holding cell. How she escapes, it's a little weird. There's this little hot tub in the room, and all of a sudden this whirlpool of blood just appears. And Sally dives right through, which, if you're in a room and a bloody whirlpool appears, are you going to jump in that? Probably not, but Sally does. So she ends up arriving in a shop mart, hanging from a noose, which actually turns out to be Donna's death spot. So this kind of reveals a little bit into Donna's life and how this was where she was hung as her punishment for being a witch. We see a softer side of Aiden as we see him, snuggled up with Kat. Things are going great until Kat utters 3 small words that Aiden definitely wasn't expecting to hear. Kat lets out an "I love you" to Aiden, and he just kind of stops. He's just laying there. She explains to him, she doesn't want anything weird to happen between them. She wants things to still remain normal, but that she just, she wanted him to know how she felt. Unfortunately, I think it's a rough situation because now I feel like Aiden is feeling obligated to tell her he loves her back, even if it's not exactly how he may feel at this current time about her. Sally's back with Aiden and Nora, and she's determined to help them with the whole Josh situation. Aiden, he tries to talk to Sally, he tries to explain to her that maybe Donna was right about the whole hole popping thing, and that she should try to take it easy. Sally kind of shrugs it off and is ignoring his concern, which, by this point is typical Sally to not really listen to anyone but herself. So they are chasing down Josh one day, trying to trap him back in his cage, and Sally decides she's going to help out this time. She does this by containing Josh in a ring of fire that distracts him long enough that Nora can get in there and sedate him. Unfortunately, they get Josh sedated, and it's kind of like, where is Sally? Sally is gone. Sally, after using this magical ability of hers to make this ring of fire, she disappears and is transported back in time. She is actually in a room overseeing the ritualistic killing of a small child. Where is this storyline going to take Sally? We have no idea. We have to wait till the following week's episode to see what happens next. The big cliffhanger for the end of the episode, Aiden's ex shows up in town, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens between the two of them in the next week's episode. Episode 2 of Being Human for 2014 is entitled That Time of the Month. This episode's recap, I really want to focus on the dynamic of Aiden and his ex who shows up in town. So, back in the 1700s, Aiden was a married man with a young child. You know, his wife Susanna was everything to him. And, you know, now he's suddenly forced to face her in the present time. It turns out that Bishop had actually turned Susanna right around the time that she had drowned, thereby turning her into a vampire like Aiden, yet Aiden had no idea that this had happened. You know, throughout the episode, Aiden and Susanna, they talk, things kind of move between them, and in the end, Aiden offers to pick up right where they left off in their relationship. Susanna does decline, which, I mean, is kind of crazy. Come on, lady. Aiden is offering himself to you and you're going to turn him down. Whoa. I'm sure most fans of Being Human were a little surprised by that turnout for the episode. Aiden is led to believe that his son has lived a long and healthy life, which is a really nice sentiment, but the true story is absolutely horrific when you think about it. After Susanna turned into a vampire, she actually chased her own child into the woods, where she hunted him and fed him and left him for dead. It's a little disturbing to think that the vampiric side of Susanna overtook her so much, and that bloodlust that she had was so strong, she couldn't resist feeding off of her own child. Off of Aiden's child. Honestly, if I was Aiden, I would be absolutely horrified with the decision she made. And I would also be slightly understanding because, okay, I get it, you're a vampire, you're bloodthirsty, but I feel like maybe she could have avoided eating the kid. Maybe we'll see more of that later in the season, maybe not. Sally has convinced herself that she could save Josh from the predicament she's in, and she ends up coming across the place where Donna has hidden all of her spell books. She comes across a spell that she thinks will help release Josh from his curse of the wolf. After talking with Aiden and Nora, they reluctantly agree to allow her to cast a spell, because at this point they're desperate for anything that will break the curse that's on Josh and Nora. She does neglect to mention, however, that part of the spell requires someone to stab the wolf in the heart. This means stabbing Josh, their best friend, in the heart. You know, neither one of them is really prepared emotionally to do this, but Aiden does force himself to step up as Josh's best friend and stabs his best friend in wolf form. Unfortunately, again, Sally does this thing where she just disappears after using magic, and they're left to finish the ritual. You know, Nora and Aiden now have to legitimately cut into the wolf and remove Josh from the wolf's body. I mean, it's a little crazy, it's a little intense, but they're doing this because they think it's going to save them. The real thing we have to wonder here is what's going to be the cost of the spell that they used and Josh being pulled out of the wolf form. Will they face some consequences? You know, I guess it's something we'll also have to see develop throughout the rest of season 4. The most recent episode that just aired last week for Being Human was entitled Lil Smokies. This is a Sally-heavy episode, which for Sally fans is great. For those of us who aren't so fond of Sally during the last season and a half, you know, we're not too interested in the story of Sally. I feel like her storyline is getting a little more complicated than it needs to be. So, you know, I'm kind of interested to see where the writers take this portion of the show. The episode's going to start out with Sally having a dream, which I guess for her it'd be more of a nightmare. She's reliving the fight that she had with Danny that ended up leading to her death, which you might remember from season 1 way back when. Except this time in her dream, Donna randomly appears and neutralizes Danny, which kind of jerks Sally back into reality, and she wakes up with this emotion of, what just happened? Sally's having this emotional breakdown with her dreams, while Aiden is filling Josh in on everything that's been happening since he was stuck in wolf form. He kind of gets him caught back up on what's going on with Sally, what's going on at the hospital, as well as a piece of information that Josh is probably a little more shocked to hear about. Aiden has to break the news to Josh that his sister has been checked into rehab. So we have Josh who's dealing with having gone through all these issues with his wolf form to now knowing that his sister has been checked into rehab, and there's really not a whole lot he can do at this point. Sally and Nora are left together in the house, and they're talking, girl talk, which is great for them to bond. And Sally actually offers to remove the horrible scar that Nora has on her stomach. How would she do this? She would be doing it with magic that she picked up from Donna's spellbook. Nora agrees. She really wants to forget her ex, she wants to forget that part of her life, and she just wants to focus on her marriage with Josh and her friendship with Aiden and Sally. See Aiden get kidnapped, and we're like, what is going on? Aiden, for some odd reason, is always getting kidnapped and taken somewhere. I don't understand why they can't just leave our favorite vampire alone. But fortunately for him, it doesn't end badly in this situation. At least not for him. So Aiden is brought to Kenny, who is thought to be a leader of a new group of vampires. Kenny so completely reminds Aiden of his son that it's hard for him to stay away from him. Which is, kind of why he's in the situation he's in now. We are kind of cutting back and forth between Aiden being with Kenny to what's going on with Sally and Nora to what's going on with Josh. Josh is having trouble readjusting at the hospital, he's having trouble focusing, and he's really having trouble just keeping that wolf at bay. He ends up running off, he gets some running clothes from home, and he just takes off. He ends up being attacked by vampires while he's out, and Kenny confesses to Aiden that he ordered the hit on Josh. He was feeling kind of neglected by Aiden and was hoping by eliminating Josh that Aiden would give him more attention. It sounds very much like a father-son kind of relationship. The son is jealous of the father's best friend. Son has father's best friend killed. Son gets all the attention. It's not a perfect world. This is just kind of the situation that Aiden's in right now. They get a call that forces them to return to Kenny's den, only to find out that every single person has been murdered. They look at the security tapes, and they see the culprit of the murders. Who should be the culprit of the murders other than Susanna, Aiden's wife? Aiden pretends to not know who the woman is that's on the film, and Kenny is none the wiser to the fact that the woman who murdered his family, his friends, is in fact related to the man that he is so closely connected to. Sally tries to recall her door, and it turns out this is actually a trick that Donna has set for her. Donna is trying to force Sally to return to Limbo to kind of keep Sally from hole popping and doing things that'll mess up the universe again. She's panicking, she accidentally sets herself and Donna on fire, as well as the spell book. The book and Donna explode, they're gone, but somehow all of the knowledge, all the spells, everything that was in that spell book is now a part of Sally. She knows everything that was in there, she knows how to perform the spells and the rituals, and she proceeds to heal Nora's scar. Again, every time Sally uses this magic, she's transported back to another time. This transportation actually takes her to the 60s or the 70s, where she sees the same little girl that she's been seeing in all of her other time travels. The little girl's handing out little Smokies. Sally's trying to communicate, but she can't get through. Suddenly, Sally's back home. You think everything's fine. However, somebody has left a message for Sally in Nora's wallpaper. There's a bloody message left there that says, "Don't leave me." Sally's convinced it's from the little girl. We won't know until we continue to watch the season whether it's from the girl or, some other entity that's either trying to communicate with Sally or who's trying to trick Sally. Perhaps it could even be Donna at this point trying to trick Sally into returning to Limbo. So that is our catch-up recaps on the first 3 episodes of 2014 for Sci-Fi's Being Human. We're going to start our originals recaps with Casket Girls. I really enjoyed this episode's beginning, as it was narrated by Rebecca. I'm a huge fan of Claire Holt, so it was exciting to see her narrate an episode. The beginning of the episode takes place in Louisiana in 1751. This kind of explains what the idea of a casket girl is. Essentially, there's this carriage taking some young women to a town, where they're hoping, to meet a gentleman, to marry, kind of start their life. Unfortunately, they are stopped by a group of men who have less than gentlemanly ideas of what to do with the girls. Fortunately for the girls, Rebecca is in the area and she slaughters every last one of those disgusting men. She saves the girls, she leads them off, and, this is where we start our story. Davina is trying to break the compulsion that Klaus has on Cammy. She's trying to get Cammy to remember what happened, and as it starts to break down, through a process that is incredibly painful for Cammy, she begins to remember that Klaus compelled her to spy on Marcel. This is such a big revelation for her. He compelled her to leave and never come back, and now she's just remembering everything. Davina's sisters, or the witches, are looking for Davina, and she's trying her best to hide from them. Unfortunately, the witches turn to Haley, and they offer her something that, bestly put, made her an offer she couldn't refuse. Sophie tells Haley if she helps them complete the harvest, they will undo the curse that's on her life. In order to complete the harvest, they need to find the body of a deceased witch, which happens to be Celeste Dubois. Celeste Dubois is Elijah's lover, was Elijah's lover, she's now deceased. And in order to find out where he buried the body, Haley has to search through Elijah's room, find his journal, read it, and determine where Celeste is laid to rest. We've seen Haley and Elijah interact, and he's so sweet towards her. It's so hard to believe that she's actually doing this to him. She's, invading his privacy and giving up the body of his deceased loved one. It's not surprising, though, throughout the season of the originals, Haley has seemed incredibly self-centered and selfish, so no one should have been shocked by her giving up Celeste's whereabouts. Davina is trying to run from Klaus and eventually is forced to face him when he takes a friend of hers hostage and compels him. As she faces off, she actually uses her power to fight Klaus. She forces him to change in front of everyone, which is painful to watch as you just see his body start to twist and morph. It was such an intense scene. She causes Elijah to choke on blood, and Rebecca actually stabs Marcel. The two have worked together, and now they are trying to figure out, a way they can save Davina. We're at a point where Sophie has found the grave of Celeste, and she's ready to take on her power. That's kind of where we leave stuff with the witches, Celeste, and Haley. Yet there's one more twist with the whole Davina factor. Klaus has actually compelled Tim to poison himself and Davina with a bottle of water. on the off chance that Davina did get the upper hand in the fight. So Davina, she's dying slowly. Fortunately for her, Elijah and Marcel came to an alliance in this situation. Neither one wants to see her die, so they did have the witches put a protection spell on Davina that would allow her to come back to life on the off chance that she was killed. That's kind of where we leave things with the first episode of 2014. The next episode of the originals also focuses on Davina. We start out with Elijah kind of giving Haley the history of the witches, as well as, sharing some background information on Celeste Dubois. Davina's trying to cast spells in the house. All kinds of crazy stuff is happening. The house is shaking. She's coughing up dirt. Rebecca and Marcel are incredibly concerned for the well-being of Davina. Haley finally confesses to Elijah about Sophie and Celeste. Haley is obviously very remorseful. She feels guilty about what she did. And Elijah is incredibly and obviously hurt. Haley gave up the body of his deceased, beloved. And it's a whole situation where it definitely is going to impact their relationship as the series goes on. Sophie is still set on absorbing Celeste's power to become kind of the almighty witch. And we kind of still, we don't touch too much on the story with what's going on with Sophie and Celeste during this episode. With Elijah and Klaus, they're fighting with Marcel about whether or not to kill Davina. Neither one of them think it's safe to keep her alive. Neither one of them feel it's in the best interest of, the rest of the vampires to keep this witch alive at this current time. Marcel can only think of one thing to do. Run. He takes Davina, he runs with her with the intent to hide her until he can find out a way that he can convince Elijah and Klaus that she doesn't need to be killed. Dance Back from the Grave is the most recently aired episode of the originals. This one kind of starts off with a nice change to the plot that we've been following. 2 vampires are found dead in a circle of black magic symbols. The vampires are worried. They're worried about what this means for them as a species, I guess you would say, as well as concerned for what the witches are up to. Marcel meets up with Cammy to kind of discuss Davina and her fate. They spend time kind of discussing what happened with Klaus and Elijah, why Marcel ran, and, what's the best option now with Davina. Thierry actually thinks that he has found Marcel's safe house at the docks, and he takes Rebecca there. They're confronted by a man. He's a warlock that was resurrected by Celeste and Sophie. He is a very, very unhappy man, and he actually ends up leaving Rebecca in a similar black magic circle, to later be found by Elijah. Klaus has been searching for Sophie. He wants to know what the witch's plan is. He finally comes across her, and they have a little heart-to-heart. She explains to him that the symbols used in these slayings of vampires are black magic that are centered around human sacrifice, which is a little weird to think about because they're vampires, so they're already dead. So would it really count as a human sacrifice if you're killing something that is already dead? I guess that's something that, maybe they might address in the next few episodes. I'm not entirely sure. She does say that there is one thing that she believes will break the spell. She believes by using Haley's blood, which is, thanks to her baby, partially witch blood, that it'll counteract the black magic that's on the circles. Klaus spreads some of this blood on the circle that is containing Rebecca, and poof, she is suddenly free. Elijah has her, and now we're kind of left with what in the world is happening in New Orleans. Be sure to join me for part 2 of Vampires, Werewolves, and Hunters Oh My, as we celebrate the 100th episode of the Vampire Diaries, as well as do our recap from last week's episode.